Okay, that should work. Okay, perfect. Sorry for the small hiccup. And let's start again. So hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar. It's fantastic to have you all here. I see we have some familiar faces. I think there will be also some other people joining us in the next minutes. But I'm just going to give you a little agenda of what is going to happen today. So I'm going to start with a small introduction of myself and of Bots and People. And then we're going to hand over to our guest, Carsten Langhammer from Gotha Insurance, who's going to introduce himself and give us a field report on automation at Gotha. And we're really curious to hear about your presentation. But then we're also blocked until 11 a.m. And we'll have some time for a Q&A session. We're really curious to hear also your questions. So please feel free to post them in the chat during the session already, and then we'll come back to those questions. If it's really urgent, of course, we can also interrupt the presentation. But yeah, just feel free to come up with those questions, and we'll be happy to answer them at the end. So really quickly about me, I'm Louise. I'm your host for today, but normally I'm a project manager at Bots and People. You might have also heard my voice on the Automation Talk podcast, where you'll also have found an episode actually where we kicked off this whole cooperation with Carsten, and we talked about automation already. But most of the time I work in our customer enablement team, which the name suggests is there to enable our customers to use and learn about automation and fulfill their automation initiatives successfully. And at Bots and People in general, our mission is to create meaningful work for everyone. And we do that mostly by enabling people to learn about automation, to understand the different technologies, the methodologies, the automation mindset in our Learning Academy. But you should also stay tuned for more, because we are currently working on building our own product to help you manage successfully your automation initiative internally through idea management and your pipeline management internally. So this is a little bit about Bots and People, but enough about us, because we are here today to listen to Carsten, which is great because we are both sharing this passion for enabling people through education and to get everyone to be able to shape the digital transformation and to be sort of on the journey through being educated. You are the head of Competence Center RPA at the Gotha Insurance Group, and you have pushed forward the initiative and trained quite a few citizen developers in a very small team. So we're very curious to hear how you achieved that. What were the challenges? What have you learned? And you've also brought us some really interesting use cases. So stay tuned for that. Lean back, enjoy, and make sure to put all your questions in the chat. Thank you very much. And the stage is yours, Carsten.
Thank you so much, Louise. I'm thrilled to be here today with you and with lots of people in the chat. So we already got the people here. So let's talk about the bots and our people here at Gotha. Just to let you know a few facts about me, so you know why I'm standing here today. So as Louise already stated, I'm Carsten. I'm the head of Competence Center RPA here at Gotha Insurance Group. I'm working in the field of RPA for now around 6 years. So, well, I think in German insurance industry, it's kind of like RPA OG. So there are lots of stuff happening since then. And my background is that I've studied information systems here in Cologne. And at Gotha, I'm very happy to be here now for already 4 years and hopefully some more. So let's give you a quick introduction. What is Gotha? What are you doing? So Gotha is one of the largest mutual insurance associations in Germany, which means that we are not just talking about customers, we are talking about members. And we successfully reached 4.3 million members in the last year. So we are having lots of members to think about when we are using our bots to succeed those people. And internally, we are talking about around 5,000 employees and overall around 4.5 billion in premium revenues. Gotha offers nearly every insurance you can ever think about. So it's a very wide field of business we have to face, and this is a really important part when it comes to how we should start with automation and how we started the automation journey we are already in, and how we proceeded with that. But I will get to that later on. In 2018, this was, if you if you calculated, just the time when I jumped into Gotha, was the time when we kicked off RPA here. And it was a really exciting time because we were seeing, as lots of other businesses, okay, we have lots of stuff to do and we can't hire and hire and hire lots of people. And we then experienced very successful business, but also very intense situations with our employees because they had such a huge workload. And we then thought about, okay, we need some situation, some technology, something to help our businesses to get rid of all this workload and to finally, find some time, find some fresh air to breathe. And we then thought about, okay, what is this robotic process automation? What is RPA? How can we use that to enable our business to help themselves? And that's really important because back then we had two huge mindsets that were going on when you wanted to implement RPA into your company. The one was you can do it really centralized, which means that you have a larger team, which is usually somewhere in the shared services center or something of a group. And those are like, I don't know, maybe 30 people who are very experienced and very high skilled RPA developers. And they would develop all the RPA solutions for the whole group and then just bring them into business. And on the directly opposite side, there is like a decentralized system where you just take the technology and like throw it into the business and you just say, okay, this is your tool, have fun with it, deal with it, and let's see if you can help yourself. And both of those systems weren't the perfect fit for our use case. So we thought about, okay, let's bring it together, and we created our own hybrid, or like we today say, federal system, which means that we created a center of competence, which is where I'm located now, in the financial holding of our group. So we have like a large focus on all of our businesses, but we wanted to bring the automation and the development of those automations into our business units, because we were thinking, okay, we already have those people that do the processes, usually manually by hand, every day and every day and every day after another. So they are already the experts for those processes. We don't have to teach this process to another like technic person. So we should bring a technology into the business to enable them to help themselves to automate their own process they are already experts in. And we then thought about, okay, let's have a look at the RPA market. There were like lots of vendors just growing up and raising all their businesses. And we then checked more than 20 vendors to see which one has the perfect fit for our use cases and our federal system. And we then, I think it took a few months, and after that we found our solution. So we are now using UiPath to automate our business. And we then thought about, okay, how can we bring this technology into the business units? So we created a project which was multidisciplinary, which means that there were members of all our business lines, and they were all coming together to think about, okay, how can we get this technology into the business units? And there were a few challenges we had to face. And one of the challenges, I think you might all experience it yourself, is, okay, do we have knowledge internally? Do we not have the knowledge internally? How should we go with that? Should we just buy all the knowledge via some external business partners and let them come into your custom lines and just develop for you, or shall they just teach your developers? And for us, it was quite fast, very clearly, that we already have some knowledge internally regarding RPA. So we thought, okay, we can build onto that. And we then created our own RPA community, where we wanted to put all of our developers. We would then train all together to bring the knowledge that we already have in the company into every line of business and into every unit we're already having. So we just thought about, okay, if we now get external help for that, we have to be quite aware that, to be honest, you can see it in the practical situation, that lots of companies that help with development and help with automation, they have like an intention to make themselves a little bit more dependent for you. So we had to face the problem that we didn't want to create some dependence regarding those external companies. And what we then did, we bought some external help, but we were very restrictive with it, and we directly announced to them and addressed to them, okay, you are here for, I think it was like a few months, and this is your expiration date. And due this date, we want to have all the knowledge you already have internally, and we don't want to create another after another after another project just to have you in our company, because we had this motivation to do it all by ourselves when we are set up. So we had to build up experts internally, and we did that. We watched into our lines of business, and we asked them, okay, let's discuss, what is your biggest problem when it comes to your everyday processes? And if you talk very very honest to your business, it usually gets up quite fast that they have lots of stuff that is troubling their business. And we found over 250 use cases in the first few weeks, talking with the business lines. And we then had like a full stack we could think of putting into our proof of concepts. Just to remember how we set up our federal system, in the upper line, you can find our Center of Competence, which is located in the holding and which directly works together with our IT department, because obviously we are not able to set up servers and stuff ourselves. We need the colleagues of our IT department for that. And then we created our RPA developer unit just in every sub company we are now having right below our financial holding. This Center of Competence has lots of different jobs. If I think about a casual or like a normal standard day in my business today, I think everything you can see in this flower takes place at a casual day. And maybe not like everything for an hour or two, but it just crashes into directly. You know, there's just a mail coming in. Well, we have this problem. How can you help us? There is, of course, governmental issues coming in. In Germany, we have a very highly restricted market when it comes to financial services and to insurance. Of course, teaching and scaling all the knowledge about our company is an everyday task as well. But let's not fall into details on that. We will come back to that directly after. Mehrwert durch Gemeinschaft. I don't know if you're all familiar with German language. If you're not, you can try to speak that out loud. I think it might sound a little funny, which means added value through community. And added value through community is the main reason we set up our whole RPA system in the Gotha group. Because we really want to connect our robots directly to our people. And they should not just work hand in hand by picture. They should really do it in the business in everyday's life. And with that main focus and the main goal to achieve, we kicked off in 2018, and we're still pursuing this goal today. So with all the changing surroundings, all the changing technologies, and all the changes RPA itself faces since then, we are still thinking about adding value through community to our business lines. And when we think about this main goal, we saw lots of, to be honest, lots of surprising success just in the first month we used RPA. Because when we used lots of transparency to bring in a new technology into the group, I think it's the best you can do. Because all of you might experience a little bit of trouble with change management in your companies. Because, of course, that's what normal in a company. When you bring in a new technology and you want to help people, sometimes there's like a ground stack of people. Maybe sometimes the people that are in the company for lots of years and are highly experienced, they tend to are a little bit maybe scared by new technologies, or a little bit afraid, okay, what's coming up there? How can it change my job? But this transparency led to very, and I really have to say, surprisingly open-minded employees we had in our group. Because there was lots of trouble in the business. They had huge workloads. They demanded some support. And by using RPA, we were able to give them the support they needed. And of course, to give them the opportunity to train themselves in something very new, very fancy, very exciting, and to give them some space for the personal and the development to maybe also different spaces they've been to in the last sometimes 40 years. So we then brought the RPA journey. We brought the RPA journey. Did you want to say something, please? Okay.
No.
We brought our RPA journey into the group, and we experienced the first developers. They were trained, and they started their own automations. And we really saw that all of our developers, they underestimated the complexity our RPA solutions could handle. So they said, okay, yeah, this bot, I can give them like an Excel, and then they can click around and move some numbers and stuff like this, but that's it, right? And when we then put them into production and we really showed them what RPA is pursuing, what RPA is able to do, they were really surprised, and they were even more thrilled to use it and to help their colleagues and themselves to do their everyday business. So when we implement all our robots into our lines of business, we focus on implementing our robots, our digital assistants, as co-workers. And there is lots of stuff you can do to implement your robot as a co-worker. You might know this this comic figure in the middle. Due to some copyright issues, we are not allowed to show the name of that, but you might have a feeling about which which theme we are using to give robots the names they are already having. So imagine yourself working in the line of business, and every day is packed of work, and you're always like thinking, okay, it is fun, but there's so much work that I'm not finding the time to do what I'm supposed to do. I'm all day just moving Excel from left to right and stuff like that. And when then there's a new technology coming in, your usually first accommodation or your first idea is, okay, does this really help me, or is it just something that will bother me again and which will decrease my workflow even worse? And we then put in the first proof of concepts. So we gave the robot a name, and we gave the robot their own, as we call it, work basket. So every employee at Gotha has their own work baskets, and all the tasks you're doing for today is going into this work basket. And if you want to forward your task to a colleague, you can just right-click on that and forward it to, I don't know, maybe Mrs. Schneider, which is the woman sitting right next to me. And adding to that, we added the robots into this list. So you could just forward it to whatever name this robot might have. So we wanted to go very easily, very flowy to integrate our robots into everyday's business. And we then thought about, okay, our robots are now doing very basic, very simple tasks. Like I said, they do something in Excel. They maybe use structured data to forward it into some systems we are using. But we wanted to go beyond that. We wanted to add something on top. And we then found lots of technologies, which sometimes are AI-specific technologies we could add to our robots to make them a little bit more intelligent, a little bit more smart. So we added chatbots, we added speech analysis, we added mail routing or OCR technologies to enable our robots to not even do the sometimes boring and stupid stuff. So they could also do stuff you usually require some intelligence to do it. I also brought some use cases, which comes to your question, Kurt Beitel. We are facing lots of payments that are coming into our company every day. But when you think about insurance, and you might experience it yourself, you usually don't pay the insurance like every day. You pay it once a month or once a year or twice a year. So you have specific dates where you can expect lots of payments coming in. And for us, we have like a classic automation, which is kind of old-fashioned, but still works somehow, that tries to connect payments to existing contracts, which means when you as a customer, or as we say as a member, you send us money regarding your car contract. Then you give the number of your contract to the payment, and our classic automation can then connect it directly to your contract, and it can see, okay, there's like 50 euros and 49 cents just directly going to the contract. Okay, it's paid, and there's a check mark. Easy going. But our members usually tend to be a little bit more creative about what they send us with the payments. So for an example, we are receiving lots of payments, around 100,000 a year, that just write, okay, here's the payment for my red Opel Corsa or something. So imagine our classic automation has to find the red Opel Corsa, which then has, I don't know, 50 euros and 94 cents in open payments. Plot twist, this classic automation can't do that. So we wanted to help our business that not those full 100,000 payments have to go to people, so they can, so they have to find the correct contract manually. So we build up an RPA solution, which is, I think it's now since 2 years or something. I think it's now in business. And this solution takes the payment data, extracts all the metadata that is coming with it. This is maybe the bank account, which is coming from other stuff. And due to this metadata, it tries to connect the payment to the contract. So this is like a more smart version than the classic automation. And all these payments that are coming in are then going to the RPA robot. And if the robot is then clever enough to find the contract, that's fine, that's awesome. And of course, there's still like a small amount that is too creative, and all those payments are then going to the humans. But we have like a huge amount of workload we could just decrease from our businesses to have to do that all day. And this was a huge success, and this was one of the robots we really experienced. Our colleagues were very happy to have it, because, to be honest, of course, there might be a few people who like to be a detective and to find the correct contract to this payment, but lots of people were just annoyed by this task and were very happy when we came up with a solution for that. Thinking about another use case, on the one hand, it's the worst use case, and on the other hand, it's the best use case I can imagine we've built up so far. Because as you can see in this picture, and maybe you can imagine where the background is coming from, this is Windows XP. Windows XP, for the younger ones here, was the system right before Windows 7 and before Windows Vista. So it's quite old now. And we had an old school system. I would call it like old school because it was really old fashioned, which hold, I think it was 50,000 contracts on data, and all those 50,000 contracts should be moved to our modern, our actual systems to hold all the personal data. But the problem was this old school system just worked with Windows XP because it was this old. And the database behind was, it was locked by an administrative password. And as you might think about, those old school systems are usually operated for lots of years. And during lots of years, some admins might leave the company or they retire. And it was what came to the system. The admin retired and no one knew the password anymore. So we couldn't access the database and we had to grab 50,000 use cases just via those Windows XP UI and migrate it to a modern system. Usually every automation solution just surrenders there and is like, okay, no way, Windows XP, like you can really put modern software onto Windows XP. It just doesn't work technically. But we had RPA. We then implemented RPA into our Windows 10 virtual desktop infrastructure. And then via OCR, it's connected to a Windows XP VDI and extracted all the data just using optical character recognition. So just by picture technology and extracting all the data of 50,000 contracts and putting all this data into our modern systems, which led to so many reliefs and relief people in our business units, because this was really a task no one wanted to do. And everyone was thinking about, okay, it's just horrible that we still have this system. I don't want to do anything with that. So yes, this process is crap if you look at it from a business perspective, but I think it's really important that we have to acknowledge that also those crappy tasks where you usually think, okay, this has to do someone manually, we can automate with RPA, and we can take away all those tasks from our humans, so they don't have to do this annoying task. They can focus on the more efficient, on the more, maybe also on the more interesting tasks. I'm just checking the chat. I think I would like to add those questions maybe later on. I think we will find enough time to answer them. Speaking about RPA and the development of RPA, as I already mentioned, I can see it's in German, but you might remember or recognize the larger terms: robotic process automation, intelligent process automation, and hyper automation. So we are now in the transition phase from RPA to IPA, which means robotic process automation focuses on very simple robots, or as we say, really efficient robots, but also really dumb robots. So they can really just automate the stuff we can put into a set of rules, and to give them those rule sets to extract structured data out of a system and put it into another one. If we then want to also focus on unstructured data or different technologies, we have to make our robots a little bit more intelligent. And this is where it comes to intelligent process automation. I already stated the optical character recognition. This is also a solution which makes your robot a little bit more intelligent. But we also have lots of other technologies, as I stated, about the chatbots, or maybe those payment routing self-learning robots. And if we then even go one or two steps further, we can then reach the hyper automation, which is fully intelligent automation that is, of course, an artificial intelligence, and it develops their own set of rules even further than humans could develop this rule set. So we at Gotha, we are now at this journey and we are reaching for hyper automation, but I think there might be a few years and then we might reach this. Thinking about our questions afterwards, maybe you could then let me know where you are now at this journey and if you're reaching for hyper automation as well. So far, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for all those questions in the chat already. I would like to hear lots of more questions from you. And if you have even further questions, here are my contacts. Just hit me up with a message or give me a call. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, first of all, to you, Carsten, for sharing your journey with us and all your learnings. It was super interesting. And without further ado, I would pass to the next question that we have, which is what was the most memorable moment of the last 4 years with you in the Center of Competence?
That's a good question. I think the most memorable moment was when I think it was one of my first trainings I gave to our citizen developers, or then to be citizen developers. And there was a woman coming up to me and she said to me, "Oh, it's so nice that I have the opportunity to learn about RPA today." And I was like, "Yeah, really nice that you're here. What's your experience with it?" And she was like, "Well, the last time I've really worked with the computer and did just more than mails and stuff, I think it was in 9th grade of school, and I did something with Excel." And I was like, "Okay, wow. Holy cow, like that might be an interesting RPA journey with you." And that woman, I think it was just a few months later, got one of our best RPA developers because she was so motivated and she really got into the technology and into the way how to develop RPA software. And I really like the fact that RPA is an opportunity to help the people to achieve goals they never knew they could achieve. So
that's great. I think it's such a great example of what this is all about: giving opportunities and creating new chances for maybe people that want to change also and want to develop into a new direction. And it's also showcases how efficient your trainings are if you learned all these things in your training. So great job and great story. Thank you for sharing that. Igor also has another question, which is a little bit more specific. And it says, in his experience, there are some quite high volume processes, such as the request or cancellation processes, which are quite complex at insurers due to the variety of input channels and the frequent lack of standardization, as OCR and document recognition are needed. So he's asking you, what are your experiences in this context? And do you use a mix of tools or only UiPath? Yeah. I think we touched upon it a little bit, but go ahead and share your experience.
Yeah, but that's a great question because leading also to the upcoming challenges we will face on our way to hyper automation, we have to think about, okay, there are more technologies than RPA we should consider to use. And I think in the next 5 years, we will just talk about automation. We will not talk about RPA and maybe business process engines or other stuff. We just think about automation, maybe in a software suite or something. And then you have a lot of variety of tools you could use. And we are already trying that. But to be honest, there's also some stuff we could improve in. But we are using, as I stated, like chatbots. We are using some smaller AI tools. We are using business process engines, and we are connecting all that together. For example, if you have a process and you have a business process engine, this business process engine straightens all the process from end to the other end, and it then can interact with robots that are doing all the tasks where maybe no programming interface is provided or something. So you can connect all those strings and build an automation platform yourself. We are having a few use cases. We are already doing that, but we want to improve with doing that. And I think maybe, speaking for Gotha, maybe in 2 or 3 years, I think we're there that we will not have any borders between the technologies, and we will then have just automation itself. Maybe we can even fasten that up a little, but I think that's the way we are going to. So thank you for the question, Igor. I think it's really important to have that in mind.
If I may ask there really quickly, you were saying that there's some room for improvement. What would you say is on your agenda right now that you want to, what's the point that you want to get to?
Yes. We want to reach a point where we have a center of competence for automation and not just for RPA. So we want to integrate automation in our main point of focus, and not just RPA or not just business process engine or something. So I think in the upcoming years, it will be our most difficult task to bring that once into the group's organizational structure, as I say, with center of competence, but also onto everyone's minds and desks. So I think automation can just be as successful as it could be when we are all thinking automation first, and when we are all thinking about automation as a tool in the whole.
Okay, so a more holistic view on it, more technology agnostic, maybe thinking of the best solution, not what can I put RPA on, for example.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I don't want to take away from the questions that are in the chat, so we'll move on to Simon, who has put in here, how long does it take, in your experience, to automate a process starting from the first idea phase to deployment? This is very interesting.
Yes, I love that question. That's perfect. Because we really experienced the journey there as well. Because, of course, you're starting with a new technology, and yes, we had some knowledge internally, but the whole group wasn't prepared for that. So we had to start, as we say, like on the empty field, and we had to involve every line of business, every line of technology, of IT, of all the stuff we are having in a huge organization, which depends processes. So we had to, before we could automate processes, we had to implement processes on our own. And when all those processes are once set up, we experienced a huge improvement on our development and also on the time it took us. So we are now speaking very, very defensive about 6 to 7 weeks from idea to implementation. But I would say that usually we are now below that. We already set up a robot in our claims department, which was highly needed due to the storms we in Germany had to face in February this year. And we implemented that robot from idea into production in less than 24 hours.
Wow.
That was quite nice. But of course, you have then you have to prioritize those robots, and you can do that like every day. So usually I would say it now takes 1 to 2 months. Yes, that might be the time.
That's pretty good. I mean, 24 hours is impressive, I have to say. But great. Okay, thank you so much. The next question from Tom is: should I guess you consider OCR, NLP, AI, API, process automation is a state? Would you agree? I think this goes in line with what we were saying before. That all these technologies should be under the umbrella of automation, and you should consider all of them depending on the use case. I hope I understood the question correctly. Otherwise, please correct me in the chat. But yeah, maybe you can add some words to that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. So as you also stated, Tom, thanks really much. Yes, process orchestration. I think process orchestration is one of the things we have to think of. And even after that, as you stated out so many different technologies, all of those technologies and all of the, or maybe not all, but lots of the technologies that will come to us even in the future are important to consider to put into your automation suite, like an internal automation suite, depending on your size of business. But in GoTo's size of business, we are deeply focused on all upcoming technologies, and we try to be state of the art and to take all of that into consideration. Is that something that will improve our business, improve our automation? And that's why I also think it is really important to stay on top of that at every time, and to then implement it into your business. But also, as we say, change management is never over. Change is always going on, and so is technology. So if one day we implement, I don't know, maybe as you say, OCR, NLP, then maybe on the other day we have to check, is that still the technology we want to go with, or should we update this? So yes, you have to be on top of that, and I think it's an always changing state.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Another, I think, really relevant question here. I mean, they're all relevant, but this one, I think I've just been thinking about this myself. Do you see any overlaps between your center of competence and what you called classical automation, which is mainly steered by the IT department? So did it ever happen, for example, that you have use cases being covered by both departments?
Yes. We experienced, I think it was really quite after we set up our RPA Center of Competence, when we first experienced some use cases where we said, okay, we are responsible for that. And also IT department said, we are responsible for that.
Right.
And it was like, no, we're not sure about that. And we then quite fast figured out, okay, we have to find a process for that. We have to find some ideas how we could not go into like a fight or something, because we don't want to steal any use cases from our IT department. They are the experts for IT and all the technologies that are coming with it. But I think it's really important to acknowledge that process automation is a really important technology, and that it is most of the time a really quickly implemented technology. As I stated out, we take like 4 to 8 weeks, and no IT system that we are currently using can be implemented that fast, and to be honest, also that efficient when it comes to financials. So I think both technologies have their positives, and we try to remind our business, because we always say that our business is the owner of the process, that if they want a process to be somehow automated or made a little bit better when it comes to process flow, that they should use, it's like a decision tree we implemented for them. And there are very basic, very few questions. And if you answer that, you will come to 3 possible endings. One is, yes, this is an RPA case. Go with it, go with the flow, ask the RPA unit. Second possibility is, this is totally an IT topic. You should go to classic IT department and they will do the favor for you. Or the third thing is, okay, we can't say by just answering those few questions, why don't you set up a meeting with people who know about RPA, people who know about classic IT, and then we will find the perfect solution. And this works quite well, I have to say. And I think now we are all, like in Center of Competence and also in the IT department, very happy that we found this solution. So I can recommend that.
Okay, yeah, that's a great insight. I think what's important is first to have this aligned goal that all of you want the same end goal, which is improvement of the situation, and then finding a process for process automation internally, and knowing who's responsible for what. And maybe you're more for quicker wins, and the IT projects are maybe more long-term and much more transformational. And when you find your space and your niche in the organization, I think that's then great to work also hand in hand and to share those cases. But thank you very much for showing us how it's done at Gotha. Next, we have a personal question by Tom again. What do you think of the word hyper-automation? Because it's been discussed in many blogs and podcasts and named a buzzword. And I think it's interesting to hear your take on it, because you had it on your slide as well. So
yes. Yeah. Usually I don't know, maybe I also do it too much myself. Usually I don't like buzzwording, because using one term for a whole variety of technologies and solutions and different types of how you can combine it, I think it doesn't do a favor to the technology if you, like, as we say in Germany, put it all in one bucket. So personally, I don't like those use of words. And hyper is also a very high-class word. It's like, hyper is like, this is top notch. There's nothing coming further. If you're going hyper, you're never coming back. So I think it's, most of the time, it's a little bit optimistic. It's like more shoot for the moon. I use it myself to state our high-class goals. Like, we want to achieve like everything, and we want to shoot for the moon. But we also have to be reminded that we should also focus on the first steps we are now facing, and not always just shoot for the moon, but also shoot for the stars that are a little bit more close.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that.
Tom, just one second. I just see that Tom also mentioned the automation fabric.
Yes.
Just to add on top of that, Gotha also thinks about automation fabrics, and I cannot yet go into too much detail because it's not public yet, but we are also building up something like that. And this fabric or factory, or however you want to call it, will be there to think automation first and to think automation in a whole and in a suite. As I mentioned, this is our main goal and also our main task in the upcoming years. And we try to phase it by using some organizational structure thing.
Okay, we will stay tuned for more maybe in the future. Thank you. Just a comment maybe, could was referring to the question before when we talked about the overlaps between IT and the COC, and he says, thanks for the answer. Although he also sees very fast IT solutions, which I guess is a totally fair point. When we were making the comparison before, of course, you cannot just say IT is only for long-term projects, but I still think what you were saying most or mainly was that you tried to find a process where you then assign the responsibility to the respective department or the respective group of people that is more apt in handling it. And I guess that was what you were saying mainly.
Yes, of course, absolutely. Thanks for stating that. And I think also there are no task in future we will handle by just focusing on business or just focusing on IT. As time improves and difficult, like the problems we're facing in business now also improves. We have to go hand in hand with business, and I then state RPA as the business side, and IT hand in hand, and we have to integrate it really deeply, and we have to find a way of communication between those two departments. Right. That is like just to mention that we try not to set up a meeting for everything we want to discuss with our IT department. We just chat them and ask them like, hey, can you just help me here? Can we find a solution for that? And I think that's the way of integration and communication we now need, and not to think too much about, oh no, they are trying to steal my use cases. Oh no, they are trying to take away my technology or something like that. So yeah, we go hands in hands as the bots and the people do as well.
Great, thank you so much. I think we're coming to the end of our webinar right now. If there are any last minute questions, feel free to shoot them in the chat. Otherwise, I will take this opportunity to first and foremost thank you, Carsten, for coming on today, for sharing again your insights with us. I think this is a great addition to the podcast episode that we did, where we talked a little bit more about your citizen developers and also a little bit more in detail about that topic. So I think it's great and complementary. Thank you for your presentation today, for bringing along those interesting use cases, and for answering all the questions from the chat. As you can see, here is some time for networking. If you are interested about anything more, feel free to add us both on LinkedIn. Also, if you want to know more about bots and people, there's a little button here, a green one, where it says "Who is bots and people?" where you can check out what we do on our website. But yes, thank you so much, Carsten, and thank you everyone today that came and listened to us and sent in their questions.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.